Hi, welcome to this brief introduction to principles of trauma-informed practice. We're going to be looking at 6 principles that are based on some work by Harrison Follett, published in 2001, and built on by various other people since then. So these 6 principles are a set of guiding values for how we might interact helpfully with people. There are a set of aspirations. We might not be able to achieve all of them all the time. We can see that there's lots of overlap between these principles, which allows a degree of flexibility. So, for example, if somebody might be mandated to a service, so they might not have that much choice, we might be able to still be transparent and say what's going on with the service, what we might be offering somebody, how they might interact with people, how people might interact with them. So there might be a degree of compensation. The first principle then is about safety, about people feeling physically and psychologically secure in the environment or in the setting that we're working with somebody. This applies not only to people who might be using the service, but also anybody who might be a visitor or somebody who works there themselves. It's useful probably to separate out the safety into both physical and psychological things, so we can consider them separately, even though there's going to be an overlap. So by physical safety, what we're looking at is the sense of security that somebody might feel because of the nature of the building, the way it's laid out, the way that people use the building, particularly in times of COVID, into the notion of maybe a one-way system might help somebody feel safe. Things like lighting and accessibility. Is the building accessible for somebody, and does that communicate a particular message about how welcome they are and so on? Also, how does the building contribute, or the physical environment more broadly contribute to safety that people feel with other people who might be in the building? So, is it other opportunities for other people to be threatening to the person, or do we take steps to make sure that can't happen? So that's the physical element, and then the psychological element is just checking out how comfortable somebody's feeling, checking out for signs of discomfort that might be around for somebody, providing support if somebody is experiencing some discomfort, being able to respond positively and productively if somebody is struggling. Making sure the interactions that around are welcoming, that they're engaging, that they're respectful, that they're on the person's own terms, and then a degree of control of how the interactions are going. The second principle is about trustworthiness and transparency. This is really to do with predictability. How predictable is what's going to happen? Do people know who's going to be around and who's going to be interacting with them, why they're interacting, what their different roles are, under what circumstances would it be okay to say this thing to one person, something else to somebody different? So that notion of trustworthy and transparency overlaps with things like boundaries, making sure that somebody knows what's going to happen with the information they share with us, for example, that processes, policies, procedures are explained rather than just done to somebody. That if we say we're going to follow up with somebody or something, we actually do that, so we live up to our commitments. That something is private, that somebody knows what the boundaries are around privacy in terms of information sharing, but also making sure that somebody's not overheard. So that obviously overlaps with the first principle of safety that we've just been talking about, and that people get what the roles are, what's expected of them, what's expected of us as well. The third principle is about choice and making sure that people have a voice in what's going on, and that their experience in the organisation impacts on how the organisation responds to them. Making sure that people got clear understanding of whoever's roles and responsibilities within the organisation. So we do this through empowerment, making sure that people's strengths and their choices and their decisions are being recognised and put into practice as much as is possible. Communicating a sense of hope that things that there's a possibility of change, that things can improve, that somebody's life can shift in a direction that they want to shift it in, and that people within the organisation, within the whole system, are feeling validated, and that their values and their choices matter. And importantly, that's in each and every contact. It's not just in, say, a therapy room or a support group. It's in the kitchen, it's walking up the stairs, it's making sure that people have choices around things like breaks and movement around and so on. Fourth principle is about collaboration and a sense of dancing with somebody rather than forcing them to do something that they don't want to do. So that creation of an environment of doing with rather than doing something to or for somebody. So the notion of being collaborative is about a partnership with somebody. Fifth principle is about recognizing that other people who've been through similar experiences, similar events, might have similar experiences or even different experiences, and the consequences or the effects on them might be similar or different as well. And that recognition of people having experienced similar events, having different outcomes, can be really powerful, as well as somebody realizing that somebody has got similar outcomes as they've had themselves. So peer support is a really powerful way of recognizing the process that somebody might be going through for themselves and recognizing in somebody else's story, and also not the sense of normalizing that this isn't a weird thing, even though it might be very difficult and really traumatic for somebody. It doesn't mean that I'm weird. It's a coping response, and people doing the best that they can in the environment that they're currently living in. So here what we're talking about is a shift from the kind of diagnostic labeling approach, what's wrong with you, to trying to understand what's going on for the person, what's happened to them, what their story is. So the sixth principle is understanding and being sensitive to the cultural, historical and gender issues that are around. People, of course, respond to traumatic events in very different ways, and the process of recovering from those traumatic experiences can be very different. And factors such as cultural background, cultural resources, historical and ancestral experiences, gender identity, sexual identity, those kinds of things can have a significant impact as they interact with communities and societies on how well somebody responds to a traumatic event and experience. So what we're looking at here in this principle is making sure that we can draw in the power of traditional cultural responses to support, that we've got gender responsive services, that policies, procedures, protocols recognise racial differences, ethnicity differences, cultural needs of the individuals concerned. So these principles are summarised in an infographic that you can get from our website, and feel free to grab that and circulate it. Right at the bottom of that infographic, it's really hard to see, is a bunch of references if you're wanting to follow up some of the stuff that we've been talking about in this video. I hope you found it useful. Any feedback via our website or email would be really welcome.